Rogue Radio. Now available on Mixcloud at mixcloud.com/Rogue Country. Keep it rogue.
Hey guys, what's going on? Today we are of course brought to you by Rogue Country and Rogue Radio. Me and Alex Tempest are here for you every single week, dropping new episodes of Rogue Radio with brand new artists, cutting edge folk, country, roots, blues, all that type of music. And also Into the Van is uploaded there every other Monday. Alex has got you back on Fridays, I've got you Mondays. We bookend your week perfectly. Please go check out mixcloud.com/Rogue Country. That is the reason I found Casey Noel. She emailed Rogue Country to say, hey, I've got a new single out, page 52, which is brilliant. She wrote a really in-depth email. It was thoughtful, it was passionate, and ever since then I've been a fan, so I had to have her on. Before that though, I've had a busy couple of fucking weeks. I went to Bloodstock in the UK, which is phenomenal. I saw Saxon and Judas Priest. Priest played Blood Red Skies and I nearly cried. It was incredible. Then I came home, did this podcast with Casey Noel, and then back out to Wonky Donk Festival where I saw the epic Moonshine Wagon and Hollow Belly. Time just seems to be getting away from me, guys, and it's just not stopping. I don't have a spare weekend, I think, for a while. I'm excited to be this busy, but every now and then you do need a break. It makes those nights on the couch even more sacred, and I do really appreciate getting to watch films. I just watched Monkey Bone, which is a really fun film from 2001 with Brendan Fraser, who deserves so much better than he has. I've been really enjoying those things. I've been taking some time. I hope you're taking some time to relax and find those things. But yeah, man, time is an enemy to us all, and I've been cracking on with things, and this podcast has been a sanctuary for me. It's given me something to do when gigs went on. Gigs are coming back. I'm lucky enough to be opening for Cam Cole in Liverpool on September the 8th at Jimmy's. I'm opening for Nick Shoulders at Bolton in November. I'm opening for Otis Gibbs in November in Leicester. I managed to play Wonky Donk. Me and Moonshine Wagon played until 3 in the morning in the tent, just jamming. It was incredible. And I've been really blessed with, we haven't had a ton of gigs, but the gigs we've had have been brilliant. Thank you so much to everyone who's come out. Thank you to people who've picked up merch. If you haven't listened to The Next Life, please do. I'm going to drop a teaser for you now.
What if we never woke? What if we stayed? What if we spent our life in a world we made? What if we slept all day and loved all night? What if we ran away to a peaceful life? All I'm asking, all I wonder, all I'm saying, don't go.
And that is my debut album. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that. And, I've been doing this for nearly 5 years, and this is my first album, and I'm so proud of it, and I really hope you enjoy it. You can head to mike333west.com and pick up your copy. But, let's get on with it, guys. Casey Noel is a true talent that, is up on the scene. She's a rising star. She played Floyd Fest. And, it's just going to be on the up and up. So listening to this podcast, go check her music out. You will really appreciate this talk and her music if you just, combine the whole thing, as she's a complex, interesting person. And this was a really great talk. It was a really needed talk. There's a bit at the end about being a woman in music and a woman in the industry that is really insightful. And, as a straight white guy, I don't really know what the fucking answer is. I don't know what we need to do to make this a more inclusive and welcoming place. I don't know what, the bar scene is that we can do to make things better where people feel safe. But, these talks are important to have because they will lead to conversations and solutions down the line that I really hope we can get to. Casey was, really inspiring for bringing this stuff up and sharing her perspective, and it's really valuable. On top of that, we talk about some amazing songwriting, and this is just a really great conversation that I was thrilled and privileged to have. So without further ado, this is episode 38 of Into the Van with Mike West and Casey Noel. Welcome to Into the Van with me, Mike West. Just briefly, we were talking about festivals and things. So you did Floyd Fest. Have you been doing any other festivals recently?
I haven't. Floyd Fest was actually like I did a festival forever ago. But Floyd Fest was actually like my first really big festival, and it was amazing and such a great experience. So I'm hoping all things go well and as to plan that I'll be doing a lot more festivals coming up soon.
Awesome. And that was, you were on the Rising stage. Where you for that, or the new artist stage? I can't remember the actual name of the stage. It was
it was called On the Rise. Is like so it was part of like sort of, there were all sorts of artists, but they had a lot of artists called On the Rise. So basically artists that are kind of still growing and aren't as well known yet. So there were a lot of those. And then we still played all the different stages that all the other acts did. It was just, they also did sort of like a competition with On the Rise, and whoever won gets for sure to come back and play the main stage. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And with that did you say that was your first real like big festival?
Yeah, like big festival. Yeah. There was a lot of people there.
Oh, cool. How did you kind of prepare going into that? Did you change up the set to be, festival oriented, or maybe crowd participation oriented?
Yeah, I guess the main thing was really, I would love to have like a permanent full band, because I love a full band sound. So like my EP is full band. So for the festival, I wanted to make sure that I was able to have a full band with me so that I could kind of duplicate that as much as possible. And so I got a great band with me, and we practiced quite a bit in preparation, and definitely made a lot of the songs, not a lot, but some of my songs don't have any drums, but pretty much all of my set had drums included. So some of the slower songs, we kind of picked it up a little bit for festival kind of music, but for the most part, not really much changed. But it was super fun. I love playing with the band, and the guys I got are amazing. So it was super fun.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about festivals, I think, because you want to try and keep it kind of more upbeat, which I think sometimes can be hard for songwriters. Because one of the things I've struggled with in the first few festivals is to keep the talking to kind of a minimum. Because as a songwriter, you kind of want to explain the stories behind the songs and stuff. But some dude who's been drinking since 10 a.m. isn't really going to bother like to care about those stories. So you have to kind of keep it short and sweet.
Yeah.
With adding drums in, was that conscious? Obviously, you did the full band thing. Was it a conscious way to kind of liven it up and get everything going, or was it because you had the full band? It was just kind of you.
It was more because I just had the full band. I wasn't for sure if I would even have drums on. I think only like 2 songs on my EP didn't have drums, and my single didn't have drums, but that was one that I knew wouldn't be hard to add drums. But he was such a good drummer that he, as we were practicing, because we were all practicing together, he just started adding a beat to some of the slower stuff, and it ended up sounding great. So it was kind of just a natural thing that fell into place with that.
Oh, cool. And did you stick around the festival for the whole weekend, see all the other bands?
So I think you got to stay whatever for free, like the days that you played, just because with COVID they did have more of a limit on guests and stuff. So I played 2 days, and so I got to go to those 2 days for free, but I did myself go ahead and purchase I wanted to see the day before me as well. So I definitely stayed around and watched a bunch of different artists, which was super fun.
Cool. Were there any highlights of the bands that like you'd been looking forward to seeing or you hadn't seen before?
Yeah, I really wanted to see Katie Pruitt, and I got to see her, and she's fantastic. I saw Molly Tuttle, amazing. Brent Cobb was really, really good too. Yeah, there were so many great artists there. But those 3 were probably like the ones I was most excited about seeing. Yeah, it was such a cool experience.
That's so cool. I know being in the UK, we don't really get many country festivals. Like there's a thing called Country to Country, which has like more pop country acts come over and stuff. And then there's one or two like Chris Stapleton or whoever, but we don't get, like, I always see the lineups. Like Floyd Fest every year just has a phenomenal lineup. And there's the Kicking It on the Creek in Kentucky, and is it the Key West one in Florida?
Yeah.
Like all of them just look absolutely insane. And like, it's one of those things where you look at those artists, if like 2 of them make it to the UK in 3 years, you feel lucky, because I really want to see Katy Pruitt. She's been incredible.
Yeah, she's awesome. That voice live is like insane. She's so good, and she's really, really nice. I got to talk to her for a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think I was bummed I didn't get to see Billy Strings, because he played Thursday and I didn't come till Friday. I really wanted to see him, and I heard he was like incredible. But yeah, it was a fun time.
Cool. Are there many modern artists that you've been listening to lately, or anyone that you've really been sticking to, just like playing lots?
For like years now, I've been listening to Jason Isbell and Brandi Carlile a lot. Those are like my 2 favorite artists. But trying to think of anyone else I've been getting into. I mean, I've been listening to Katy Pruitt a lot. I really liked Sturgill Simpson's bluegrass albums that he released. Brandi Carlile for me is like, she's about to release a new album. I'm really pumped about that one. But pretty much my main 2 that I just always stick to are Jason Isbell and Brandi Carlile. I also love the Highwomen, which Brandi Carlile's in, and Lori McKenna. There's so many good artists out there. I listen to a lot of different stuff. But yeah, those were the ones that came to mind.
Yeah, are there genres outside obviously country and Americana, the singer-songwriter stuff? Is there a genre that like stands out to you above those that you still listen to like lots? Is there another one or other artists that you really enjoy out of those genres?
I can enjoy like all sorts of genres. In terms of like specific artists, I don't really have as much. I will say I love Adele. I'm a big Adele fan. I love her voice. I actually really think I love Bruno Mars's voice. And what is that guy's name that he's coming out? Silk Sonic or something, that duo. It's like R&B sort of. But yeah, I think Bruno Mars is great in terms of like pop-ish stars. But I like pretty much anything. I used to actually be a Latin ballroom dancer, so I love some good Latin music. But yeah, in terms of what I listen to, I do mostly listen to the kind of stuff that I play, but I can pretty much enjoy listening to anything.
Yeah, I always feel like if it's done with sincerity, I think that's always like the most important thing. So
that's for me. Yeah. I think that's too why I like an Adele and a Bruno Mars. Like if I can feel what you're trying to portray in your voice, then I'm probably gonna like it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why I like Americana music a lot. I feel like a lot of the artists come from a very genuine place, and you can hear the emotion and feel it. Especially because a lot of their stuff isn't like super crazy, overproduced and messed with a whole bunch in the actual process of mixing and mastering it. And I really like that kind of sound.
Yeah. No, I don't know if it was for you. I remember for Isbell's last record, Reunions, it took me a couple of listens to get into it, because the production and instrumentation and like the way it was done was just so much of a shift, especially against like Southeastern and stuff. Did you have a hard time getting into that record when you first listened to it? Or
I didn't, but I think it's because for me, I became a Jason Isbell fan a little bit later than, like, it wasn't when his original stuff came out. So I really liked it. I'm also, I don't know. Did Dave Cobb produce that one?
I think he did. So. I'm not too sure. I'd assume so.
I pretty much love everything Dave Cobb touches. I thought it was a really, and also I think anything that lets Jason shred, I'm for, because the dude can shred. But yeah, I thought, and honestly, lyric wise, it was definitely, I totally get why some people were like, but lyric wise, it was all the same to me in terms of how genius it is. Like Dreamsicle, Only Children. I mean, so many genius songs. So yeah, I really liked it. But it was definitely a shift from like his other stuff, which I love both. I don't know. I think too, I come from it as an artist. I think sometimes it's really hard for non-musicians when they listen to people's work that's changed, like a very big shift from what, and I don't even know that's a big shift, but like a shift from what they're used to hearing. For me, I think because I make music, I'm like, well, if he's doing that, then that's what he's like really excited about right now. And I think that it translates, like you're going to play better whatever you're enjoying at the moment. So I'm like, I'm all for like the different changes and little experiments and stuff. But I think too, like when he was in Drive By Truckers, he was definitely more like rock. So I think he was kind of mixing what he did by himself and sort of what he did with them, I think, with Reunions. But I loved it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important thing. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when it's like, it's the artist's decision to go those paths, because if the artist isn't enjoying it, then what's the point in them doing it?
Yeah.
And you always kind of see that backlog, probably backlash. The thing I always kind of see, the most recent one is obviously when Sturgill went to his full like rock opera anime thing, and everyone was like, what the fuck? But it's like, he kind of warned you he was going to be doing this, because he did like an album before that was all like a horn section and stuff and a concept record. So you can't like keep those artists in a certain box. And I think that's a really interesting way to be, obviously with your influences and like the Latin side of things and the Americana side of things. Are you going into the studio soon, or are you starting to
I'm about to go in the studio in September with actually the same band that I took to Floyd Fest. It'll be the first time. So in my EP and my single, I did like a live take with me playing guitar and singing at the same time, but then I had artists come and play on those tracks. But this time I want to do like full live band, because the song that I'm doing it wasn't supposed to be as upbeat as it's become, but it's got this really cool, it's a murder ballad is what I guess you could call it. So it's kind of a dark song, and I was thinking it was going to be more like sort of like westerny, but there's like some soul sort of stuff that the guys came up with in the band, and it ended up sounding so cool at Floyd Fest. So I was like, we should go in and do it like full live take to get that like really raw energy in there.
No, that's awesome.
But I'm excited.
Yeah. That's definitely, I think, the best way to capture. I want to bring in a band for my next record, and I think that is the way, because I know like obviously Stapleton did it for a few of his records, American Aquarium kind of do it like that, and there's something about having it in that live environment that I just think gives it a whole other, like thing. But that's
especially
really
if you have like a solid drummer.
Yeah.
Because for me, I actually gone and done just vocals and guitar for this song. And then I was like, it's not working. And I had already been practicing with them a bunch for the festival. And I was like, I feel like I typically do use a click track, but with this song in particular, I was like, this click track is throwing me off because my strumming pattern is kind of funky. And I'm like, if I had drums with me and not a click track, I'd be on time and I would have a groove. But with this click track, I just feel like it's sounding not like authentic. It's not sounding right. But yeah, I love a live take of full band kind of stuff.
With going in September, are you bringing more influences into this record to like experiment a bit more, or are you kind of, taking what you did with your first EP and kind of just like refining that to your own songwriter style?
I literally don't even think about anything that I've done in the past when I go, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I definitely think it still sounds like me. But yeah, this one I definitely, I had an idea. But yeah, I definitely want to keep the same full band sound is all I knew. But I really was, I kind of try, especially with something that's going to be, well, I think originally the thing was I wanted to make it upbeat for the festival, like more upbeat, because I knew it had a range, like it could go more upbeat. And I was like, if we take it that route, it'll be really fun. People at the festival will really enjoy it. But then I ended up loving that vibe, like for the whole. So that was honestly my only thought going into it now. Usually I have more of an exact vibe idea. Usually I get really into that for when I go in the studio, but this one switched on me when I started doing it with the band. So I think that's actually kind of, I'm excited about it because I think they're all of the guys, they're in a band called Jive Mother Mary, and they're fantastic. You should definitely check them out. But they kind of like, they were having so much fun. It was cool to hear their take. Because for me, I've never really had a full-time band or anything. So most of my ideas are just my ideas. And I've had like people play with me. But these guys, we got to be really good friends. So we'd go practice, we'd like jam for a while and like work on these songs. And so they got really into the song. So it was cool to be able to feed off of them. Like, hey, what do you like about this? Oh, we should try this or whatever. But yeah, so this one is definitely more, whereas before it was just me kind of arranging it and stuff. This one is much more of a collaborative sort of project. So I'm excited about that.
That's so cool. And you said you kind of had a vibe going into not just Pretty Words. What kind of was the mindset when you went in to record that? What was the vibe you were not necessarily aiming for, but the vibe you had then?
Yeah, I really just love anything Americana and songwriter together. So I kind of wanted to mix the two of like the energy of Americana and the feeling of like a singer-songwriter album, especially with like slower songs, like my song Seasons. I really wanted that one in particular. I was like, the others can be full band, but this one I really want to strip down. So I kind of just wanted to keep where I could bring up extra energy. I wanted to bring extra energy, and I wanted that sort of country Americana feel. So I wanted to add like fiddle, some mandolin, an upright bass on a couple of them. But yeah, I was kind of like trying to find a good balance between those two feels.
Oh, awesome. And I was reading on your bio about you started off with a Spanish guitar and finger picking. Did you go in with, when you were writing Marshall and when you were playing that, is that kind of with that influence of, because when I was listening to that track today, it was that kind of finger picking style and that like delicateness and that like, but it's a delicateness with a purpose, I think, with finger picking, which I really enjoy. Was that something from your influences back then?
Yeah, all the finger picking really comes from classical. And it's probably what I actually feel more comfortable like doing those kind of finger pickings a lot of times than I do certain strumming patterns. I think because that's what I started doing, but that was definitely influenced from my classical guitar for sure. And the Latin-y kind of, yeah,
awesome. And growing up, who were your kind of influences? Like, what music were you exposed to when you were a kid?
All kinds of stuff. So my dad loved like Earth, Wind and Fire. Like that was like, I tell you, so random. And then my mom loved everything. Like growing up, I listened to a lot of Simon and Garfunkel, CCR. I mean, some Dolly Parton, just a bunch of random stuff. But my dad really loved like the soul stuff. But I listened to a lot of like oldies from all different genres. The one I didn't get as much, neither of my parents were into like rock that much. So I didn't grow up listening to any of like the rock classics much. I did have like some Eagles, but for the most part, no super rock and roll kind of, none of that. Wasn't like they were listening to Led Zeppelin or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that has definitely helped because I was exposed to a lot of stuff. And I think that's helped me kind of not stay in one sort of box, even though I'm pretty partial to Americana. I think at least my own stuff doesn't end up sounding like each other. Like I don't have songs that sound like another song that I've written.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I don't know, when I was a kid, like my mum was probably the same as your dad, whereas it was a lot of soul. It was a lot of Michael Jackson's early albums.
yeah.
The Temptations and Four Tops and stuff. But my dad, like, he was all Guns N' Roses and Kiss and
Yeah, I didn't get
Sabbath and
any
stuff.
of those guys at all. It's so funny because that is, and I think at least all of the musicians that I've met who are like, especially the guys that I know in the same genre as me, like they listen to a bunch of that kind of stuff, and you can hear those influences in their playing. But I'm like, I don't even know if I could name a song. Like and now I do need to like go back and like do some research. Like it just was never something that I was exposed to. And then but I definitely think it's super cool. And like anything I listen to now, I'm like, oh yeah, it's sweet. I like it. I dig it.
Yeah, but it is weird how it's kind of, I include myself in that, where it's like that rock and metal background did lead to a lot of people not necessarily switching over, but it's a lot of people who are inspired that type of music began writing, country, Americana, alt country kind of stuff. Because I know Brent Cobb was influenced that way. Obviously, Jason Isbell was, and things. And it's weird to see how, because I didn't grow up on country music. I didn't listen to any of that until I was like picking my own songs and like actually discovered Johnny Cash and went down that rabbit hole. So it's weird to see people who had grown up with it. And I was always kind of jealous. Like I have a friend who's, knows 90 countries.
I'm jealous of that too, because I didn't grow up. I will tell, we're on the same boat. I did not grow up with like the super, I had to do research on like, I think I did know a couple Johnny Cash, and some Dolly Parton, but I didn't know like Waylon Jennings. I didn't know Chris Christopherson, like all those people that now my mind's blanking, but yeah.
But that was the thing, because I'd probably get crucified. But the first time I went to see Chris Christopherson in Liverpool, I went because he'd been in the Blade films. And I was like, I'm going to go see Whistler. And I was like, oh shit, this is incredible.
Yeah, so I always forget that he was an actor. It's so weird. Hey, you learned though.
Yeah.
You wanted to see him, and that still exposed you, so whatever.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I felt bad because I got to meet him at the end of it as well, like really briefly.
No way.
Yeah, and it was like only because he got taken off the stage by his handler and literally walked to the tour bus. But as he was ending, I ran down from where I was. I just ran outside and got to the tour bus as he was coming out. So one guy took a picture with him and I got a CD signed. And I was like, fuck yeah, I met Whistler. And now I'm like, holy shit, I met one of the best songwriters who have ever lived.
Yeah, that dude is insane. Yeah, that's crazy. I've met Emmylou Harris.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes. And Richard Thompson. He's over.
Was that part of a songwriting camp?
Yeah, I did. He does this camp called Frets and Refrains. And I got a scholarship to go to it, and it was amazing. Yeah. And they did, it was him. They had a lot of other people. Patty Griffin was there as well. And then his son, Teddy Thompson. But yeah, all of those, his whole family, super great, talented people. Yeah. That was probably one of the coolest experiences of my life for sure.
How did the scholarship in the songwriting camp come about?
So I think I saw somebody post about it on Facebook about how it even existed. And it's like you can pay to go to it, but it's very expensive. It's worth it. Like what you pay for is you pay for like being able to stay where we stayed, and food is included, and it's like all included, but it was expensive. I was in college at the time, so it was like, can't afford it just of my own. So I entered, they had like a scholarship program where you had to they had a bunch of questions you had to write, some really detailed responses. And I think you had to send, I think maybe 2 videos of like some songs that you wrote and you singing them. And so I sent it, and I was able to get, I think like a partial, I think like half of it paid. And so then I paid for the rest, and I went. But yeah, there were like 100 and something people. Some paid, some got scholarships like I did. And it was just such a cool, it was from like 9 in the morning to like 5. You'd be going to different, basically like sessions. You got to choose who you would be going to at what time and stuff. But yeah, it was amazing. Exhausting, but amazing.
Yeah. Was it hard to stay in that songwriting and creative like mindset for so long? I can imagine that would take it out of you to be like in that headspace the entire time.
It was, it wasn't like we were forced to write songs. It was more like kind of, we got to hear and ask questions, and like in our free time we could write songs. And then some of the people who you could go to their session, is not the right word, but I'm blanking on it, but you could go and like hear from them. Some of them would like be like, hey, if you come back to this session tomorrow, like I would love for you guys to have a song. But there was never any pressure. And it wasn't all just songwriting. I think one guy, I don't know if you know, his name's Tony McManus. He does like, he's an incredible like Scottish Celtic music sort of player. Insane. But he just taught guitar, super intermediate guitar. Like I sat in on a class just to sit in on a class with him, and I was like, the tunings that man would, yeah, amazing. But yeah, it wasn't all, and there was some vocal courses. There was even one like on the history. One of the guys that was one of the teachers, his name is Happy Trum, and he used to play with Bob Dylan a lot, and kind of was there during that era of time where all these artists were popping up and doing that kind of stuff. So he did like a really cool history of music kind of
awesome.
One day. So it was like we got a bunch of different stuff. We had straight songwriting courses. You could go take guitar. That Happy Trom guy also did like finger picking styles with Bob Dylan songs. He did different levels of finger picking too. So we had a lot of different options that we could do. So I didn't get tired of anything really. It was nice to be able to like hear and ask questions from people that were so genius level at all of this stuff, and then not feel pressure necessarily. It was just like it was an environment where you could learn whatever you wanted to really. But you would get intense lessons and all of those things.
Yeah, that's incredible. But with those songwriting camps, was there anything you took away from that you're still really using today as, mantras or guides for when you are songwriting?
Yeah, I think probably the 2 that stuck out to me the most was I had gone up and asked Richard Thompson, because I was like, you know what, he was like standing off to the side, and I was like, I have this question I'm gonna ask. I mean, we could talk, and like he was very much around, and everybody was like really chill. It was really cool. But he definitely, since he was like, I mean, he's Richard Thompson, people were a lot more shy to like go and like have conversations with him, not in like a classroom setting where you're like raising your hand and like whatever. This was like right after one of his courses, and I went over to him and I was like, because it was one of those questions that it wouldn't have gone as well if there wasn't back and forth. And I just asked him, I was like, because I'm a slow songwriter, and I was like, I feel like so many people write songs really fast, and I have this idea, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, But a lot of people tell me to just like write songs. If you start one, just force yourself to finish it in a day or in a week or whatever. Because even if it doesn't turn out like you like it, you can go back, you can edit it, or get all the muddy water out and get all the bad songs out of you or whatever, which I've always hated that idea. And I told him that. I was like, I've always hated that idea and it just doesn't feel right to me. I was like, if I'm stuck on a song, what are your, like, if you get stuck on a song, do you think you should force it? Do you think you should give yourself a time limit? Like, force it, then come back to it. He told me, he was like, I don't think you should ever force it. He's like, what I always do is I always have multiple songs going at once, or at least ideas. He's like, if you feel like you're just really stuck, he's like, go on to a new one. He's like, get yourself out of a routine that you're in. He's like, write. I think a lot of times we tend to write at certain specific times. He's like, there was a period in my life where I was writing and I would wake myself up at 3 a.m. and force myself to just come up with at least one song idea. I would at least give myself 5 minutes where I had to write one line, whatever it was that first came to my head, and then I could go back to sleep. He's like, but I would do these like different things to like get my brain just in a different state and thinking in ways that I wouldn't be normally, just because I threw my body with this like crazy sort of trick of waking myself up or writing at a different time. He's like, so you can do that, like that extreme. He's like, or you can just make sure that you have different stuff going at the same time. He's like, but you should always have at least one song that you're working on, no matter what. Like, even if you're not actively like writing for something specific, he's like, just have one song that you can go back to. Or I guess technically that'd be kind of like two, one that you're like actively working on, and then another idea that you can kind of go back to. So I thought that was really helpful for me at the time. And then the other advice that I got was from his son, Teddy Thompson. I showed him one of my songs, and he really, really liked it. And he was like, I like that song. He's like, because you talked about a subject that could be cliche, but you said it in a non-cliche way. He said, as a writer, you have to earn your right to be cliche. So he's like, you can be cliche all you want in terms of like your idea, because at the end of the day, you want people to connect like with your song. So there's a lot of ideas that everybody has written about. He's like, but if you come across it at a different like way than somebody else, that's when you're allowed to do that. And that's when you are allowed, when you do it and you do it really well, is when you're able to do it in a way that other people haven't done before, or that's very unique. And so now I definitely think about that, about earning the right to be cliche. Like, okay, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know if I like this subject because it just seems so well done or like or used. Actually, that's kind of how I thought about page 52 when I started it, because I think I started it just with the line, literally the first line, did I misunderstand you, or was I living in a dream? And I was like, I know like where this song is going. I was like, but I know what it's about, but I don't know, maybe I shouldn't keep going with this song. But I kept getting like, that was the only thing that would come to my mind when I was like trying to write. And so then I was like, okay, well, let me just try and write this topic in a different way. And then I started thinking about like being on different pages from somebody, and like doing that with like talking about being on different pages of a book. And then some people get into relationships really fast, so don't dive in if you're just gonna be like, oh nope, never mind, and let the other person drown or whatever. So it was one of those things that kind of reminded me that artists use really normal subject matters, and you make them interesting and unique and special with how you write about it.
No, that's the cliche thing I think is a really important one. I'd never really thought about having to like earn it, because I've been wary of things. Obviously, being in the countryside of things, every other person has a song about whiskey, shit like that. And it's like, how do you approach something like that without it just becoming, you know, paint by numbers, a cliche and stuff? So having
Yeah.
to earn your cliche is such an interesting thing. Are there any songs that you've been kind of sat on and kicking around for ages that have finally clicked? Because I know I've had a chorus in my head for about 3 years, and 2 weeks ago it finally clicked in how to do it, and I managed to write like 2 verses in the chorus of it, and now I'm back from a festival and things I'm gonna sit down and hammer out. Has it been one that's kind of been you've kicked around for a long time?
Yeah, I think Seasons, when I wrote it, I was like, it took me like months and months and months. It wasn't a year, but it was at least over half a year where I was working on that song, probably. Which ended up being, I think it was sort of the song, not, it wouldn't have been, I don't think I would have written it the same way if I had done it in like a couple months. Because it was definitely, it's called Seasons, and I think it turned out the way it did is because I let a couple seasons go by as I was writing it. But yeah, that one was one of those where I was like, and I was really happy with, like, I think I had written like the first verse, and I was like, there's nothing else. I cannot think of anything else to add to this. And so then I would come back like 5 months later, and I was like, oh, okay. And then finally I finished it. I think it took me like 9 months. But that was definitely one that I had that was just like, it took me forever. But every time it was like little sections where I would get like this, like, oh, okay. And like, and I would get stuck again, and I'd be like, I thought I was getting somewhere, but I did finish it eventually.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And like, it is hard when you have like a phrase or, you know, a verse, and then I think it's harder as well because if you aren't in that kind of Nashville songwriter studio where you have to crank out songs, like I released an album last year, you did as well. So it's not like you're really in a rush to write new material. And especially with, you know, live shows not being a thing, you don't get to road test them. So it is kind of not necessarily the point in writing a new song at the moment, but there's no sense of immediacy or urgency to it when you can just kind of sit with what you've got and make sure they're the best they can be. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And that's actually, I think too, what was cool about this one that I'm about to go in, because I actually was able, it's a new one, and I was able to actually like really test it with a full band and everything. But yeah, it's songwriting's so weird. It's so weird. It's like the most bizarre thing. It's so fascinating how everybody approaches it differently, and how it's like you wrote it and then sometimes you finish it and you're like, I wrote that. Like, I don't even it's very weird, but I love it. It's probably like my favorite part of being a musician, and also my least favorite all at the same time, because sometimes I just get real frustrated. But I like it because it's a challenge. For sure.
Yeah, because I read on your bio that it was at 17 you had a guitar tutor that like encouraged you to start songwriting, and before you hadn't really thought about it. What was the kind of thing that made you click about songwriting?
Yeah, I think too, for me, like my family like never knew really that there was any sort of music scene other than like mainstream. And I've never been the type that like, I don't even really like I don't like Coliseum shows. I don't like I love music for the connection. Yeah. Like I love a big concert with like thousands of people, but not like that. I want there to still be this like where I feel connected to the artist on the stage and vice versa. I don't want to be watching you from a screen, but in the same room as you at like a Coliseum show. Like I'd much rather just watch a really high quality YouTube video of you at that point, you know? So that was also something like I wouldn't want to, I don't like the performance. Like I like the performance. I don't like the whole like sort of acting that comes involved with some of the like more mainstream stuff. Like if you get music, like I don't know, if you do music, like I was like, I don't want to be like dressed up in these like weird outfits and like dance. Like I love to dance, but that's just like, if I'm doing music, it's like about the music. Like it's not, and I respect people that do that, and I can enjoy people that do that too. But me personally, I was like, I can't see myself doing that. Also, I don't want, like, I couldn't imagine having that level of fame and like not being able to walk out my front. Like, none of that sounded appealing to me. And I didn't think that, I was like, I love music, but I don't even, there's no other option.
Yeah.
So why am I gonna like pursue this? And I don't really think that I knew that people wrote their own songs. I think I just heard people wrote songs for big artists, really, and some of the big artists wrote songs. And it never even dawned on me, like, you could write a song, Casey. You sing and play guitar, like you could write a song. So until he said that, it was like, oh, huh, yeah, sure. And then I started like doing some like open mics and some gigs, and I met different artists, and then I really started like discovering different types of music and different artists who were like big but at a small level. Like, they had a following, they made a living doing what they love to do, but they lived a pretty normal life, and they played really cool venues. And I was like, I think I would really love to do that. But it was definitely, I discovered it like along the way, because I had no idea that there was any other side to the industry besides this like machine, which is, I think too, like, I just don't like the machine that is like pop culture. Like, I couldn't be an artist who people were telling me what I had to write about, and I can't like, I don't work that way. So that was never appealing to me, or like tell me what to wear, what to like, so until he kind of pointed that out to me and kind of was like, well, you could do open mics, you could do these, once you get more comfortable, you could do gigs. And I'm like, you can do that and you can make money doing that? And he's like, yeah. So it kind of all just happened naturally after that.
That's so cool. I think it is like, when you see it as an accessible thing, you aren't just seeing it as like icons in a stadium. You aren't just seeing it as like that inaccessible thing surrounded by paparazzi. But when you see someone on a small stage and you know they make a living from it, you're like, oh, that's attainable, that's, you know, within reach. It's a really weird realization when you finally have that. But something you just touched on then was, you know, not having a PR team, not like having people tell you what to say and things. I found you out because you wrote to the Road Country page with easily the best like summary and best email we've ever received, in terms of, you know, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is, you know, would you like to play my tracks?
Yeah.
Did you write all that yourself? Obviously you don't have a team to like write.
Yeah, me and my mom do that stuff together. I'm really lucky
awesome.
that my mom is like, we both kind of manage my stuff. So we'll like both write things and then edit them together. But yeah, I'm not opposed. Like, I would love, there's so many aspects of what I do now that like, if I could have someone do it and me not touch it, I would be like, take it. But in terms of like songwriting and like stuff for like pop artists, it's like, it's so intense. You really don't have any say. But like if someone ran my social media, I'd be like, yeah, go for it, dude. Like, knock yourself out, do it. Because I social media to me is just like, I like it for the connecting, but I don't like always feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to keep putting content out. And but and you know, emailing venues and stuff and all that is not always, I mean, that's not the part that I didn't become a musician to send emails, but you got to get good at it.
Yeah.
It's not like you love it. You have to think of concise ways to say things and, you know, describe yourself in your music so that when people read it, they're not like reading something super crazy long or something way too short where you're like, I don't even understand like what you're selling me with your music or whatever. But yeah. No team, just me and my mom.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think it is weird because obviously no one ever tells you, it's like, oh, so you want to be a songwriter and you want to, you know, play shows and things. 80% of it's admin. Like, no one ever tells anyone that, when it's like, oh, if you enjoy songwriting, you better get good at having to post like every day on Facebook and Instagram and shit. Yeah,
there's so much that goes into it that people just like don't think. And I remember that used to be like when I first decided I wanted to do that. I think that's the hardest too, because you definitely lose a lot of people in your life because people just don't get it. They're like, oh, why can't you go do this? Or why, what do you mean you're busy doing email? Like, I'm like, well, I have to play places, like,
Yeah.
and then also people who just like think you're not doing anything. They're like, what do you do all day? And you're like, you have actually no idea how much goes into it. Like, I'm sending emails. I'm also, me personally, I know some artists, well, I think too, for me, I want to not just be playing like local places, but I memorize my whole set list. And there's some gigs that I play that are like, I hate a 3-hour gig. I won't lie, but I play 3-hour gigs and I have all 3 hours worth of material memorized, more than that. But yeah, I don't want to, like, I play better if I'm not looking at anything.
Yeah.
So I have to stay fresh on all my stuff. And then I do covers, but I also would like to eventually not do covers. So I'm also writing songs while learning, it's just so much goes into it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I remember when I used to live at home and I was first starting to like write songs and book gigs and stuff. And my mom or dad would come past me like, you're always just on your guitar on your computer. And I'm like, that's essentially what a musician is. It's either you're on the guitar or you're on the computer.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in that both my parents like are supportive, but my mom like actually like gets it. And so she tries to do as much of email stuff as she can for me, even though she has another job. She's like, I would rather you be writing songs and practicing and stuff than writing emails. And she knows I hate it. So I'm lucky in that too. And just that they believe in my music enough to help me. And so
that's awesome.
Sure.
I think that must be like, it must be a really like helpful and a lovely thing that your parents like support you, because I know sometimes parents just like there's a disconnect and they don't really get it, but to have like that support system must be really nice and obviously supportive, and just a really wholesome thing to have for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, I certainly wouldn't be where I am, right? Like, I wouldn't have music out. I wouldn't have played Floyd Fest without them, because honestly, like the area that I am in particular, like there's not that many musicians like my age that I knew. So I think being a musician can be really lonely to begin with, especially if you don't have a band. So for me, I when I really started doing that, I was like, literally nobody gets it. and and then you're trying to kind of make progress and start playing places regularly. And it's also one of those things, not everybody's going to like your music. You have to know that. So it's like, I grew a thick skin, and I also for a while didn't have a lot of musician friends, didn't know a lot of musician people that I could talk to. But I had like my mom being like, she's very honest, and she's like, I would tell you if I thought that you couldn't do this. Like, I would be like, honey, maybe like you should find a different thing. This is not. She's like, but you have something, you can do this, and has always been like my biggest encourager. Like I definitely, because I definitely for a while I was like, I don't even think my songs are good. I couldn't figure out. I was like, is my mom just being nice to me, and like some people are being nice to me, because I didn't have people in the industry that I could really put it in front of for a long time. I had like some guitar people, but when I started like writing actual music, a lot of the people at the time in my life were like, yeah, we never listened to lyrics, but that sounds good. And I'm like, no, I need like, and so it was like, I for the longest time, I just felt like, and I still feel like this to some degree. I'm like, what am I like? There's just no direct path. It just feels like you're walking, stumbling blindly. But yeah, without her, I definitely, and I mean, yeah, she didn't know anything about the industry either. We both were just like, Casey, come on, let's do this. But yeah, I definitely don't think I would be, it's not a thing. I know I would not be doing what I'm doing if I hadn't had her like pushing me and supporting me along the way, for sure.
That's amazing. And like going back to what you're saying about like it not clicking in like your local area. I had kind of the same thing. Like weirdly, you'd assume it was the opposite because I live just over the water from Liverpool, like 5 minutes away, and Liverpool's obviously got this huge reputation as a music city.
Yeah.
But I've never really fit into that type of thing. I always say if I'd have paid attention or only been able to gig locally, I would have given this up ages ago. And there's a whole thing where it says you shouldn't tour, you shouldn't gig outside of your hometown until you can bring 250 people to a home show, which in this day and age, I think is like ridiculous for this type of music. So it wasn't until I started traveling further that I started like, oh shit, like other people are getting what I'm doing. Where did it kind of click for you? Did you start traveling further from your hometown to play shows?
Yeah, my hometown in particular is the scene there is like, I can't even explain it to myself much. Let's try to explain it to you. But it's like, first of all, it's kind of monopolized a little bit, which I mean, I understand that there's people that have been playing for years and so they play at the regular places, but it's very hard to get in.
Yeah.
Like at my age, I'm 25. There's people who are like, have been playing since they were 25 at these places. And so it's like, and then it's also a very jazz scene and there's a lot of jazz musicians in the area. But there's also just not as many like people. And I don't know, maybe it's all places, but there's weird competition, I feel like. And I don't like that because I think there's space for everybody. But, you know, it's bizarre. But once I started kind of like even going just like 40 miles or not 40 miles, 40 minutes away from my hometown, an hour, 2 hours or whatever, then I was like, oh, okay. Like you meet different people and the scene is a little bit different. I don't know. I just immediately always got way better reception from places that were not my hometown. And I think it's the opposite now. I think you should try and play not in your hometown as much as possible. Because I think, you know, people, I don't know. I think people, you know, people think actually higher of you when you're like, oh, they traveled some, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, your hometown's like, oh, who are you? You know, it's very bizarre. I don't get it. I don't think it's right at all. But I was actually talking with my electric guitar player about this exact thing, because he was like the other day, he's like, yeah, hometown gigs are he's like, I know this one is going to be packed, but the reception is just never what I want at a hometown gig. He's like, and then he's like, it's also so hard for me to book at hometown places. And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. So I think it's a lot more common. But I've had somebody tell me like who does really well in music tell me like, yeah, no, you'll never make it in your hometown. You have to come back to your hometown when you make it.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that it's not just like a Liverpudlian thing and all the Scousers hate me.
No, yeah.
It's always a nice thing, but it is one of those
things. No, it sucks everywhere.
Yeah.
I think too, it's weirder as a female. I used to not go in, like when I first started music, I was like, I think people just say that like, oh, it's harder to be a female. No, it is. It sucks. Like there's so many different things that like I have to worry about that like my guy friends who are musicians don't have to. And just treatment. Like I've had so many like ridiculous interactions with like other bands where it's like I'll be up on stage and they like a sound guy will go talk to the bass player or something and then like it's like okay, or I'll be like saying, oh, I'm getting major feedback up here, and the sound guy's like, yeah, no, it should be fine, and I'm like, no, the whole stage is shaking, like there's something is really not right here. And then the guy to my left will be like, so we're getting major feedback, and the sound guy's like, oh my god, I'll go fix it right now. And I'm like, okay. Like and things like that where I'm like, okay, I can't, like, this has happened enough to where obviously the only difference is that I'm a female and they're not, because I can say the exact same thing and you're gonna ignore me. And then just feeling like, I think too, like I these guys that are in my band, they're not my official. I would love for them to be my official band, but who they back me anytime they can, and they did Floyd Fest. These guys have been like the first guys that I have felt like we like have treated me like we're the same level. We do the same thing, and like not like I'm some girl. Like, oh no, she's fun. Well, like same level. Like we do the same thing. I think sometimes people treat women musicians like they're not going to know certain things.
Yeah.
And then if you don't know certain, like for me, I'm like, there's certain, like sound is not my main. I don't know that much about sound. I know the very bare minimum, but I try to not let that be known, because if you show weakness, I feel like then you're weak in other areas too as a musician. Whereas with these guys, I could like actually ask them questions and they'll be like, oh yeah, so this is the, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I don't always feel that comfort level of like being able to like ask and then not be like, okay, yeah, she doesn't know anything kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's very strange as a female too. I think it's harder to find a band as a female as well. For sure. Because it makes traveling more difficult. If they have significant others, you have to be like, I literally just want them to play with me. I'm not trying to steal your man. Like, I try and turn into a bro. I'm like, what's up?
Yeah, but then that's
it's
a
just
shame. But then that's a shame as well, because
complicated.
you have to kind of alter your personality, even though there's no ill intent there. It's still all these hoops that you have to jump through. That's just bullshit.
Yeah, there's so many things that people like I get so nervous meeting like people's girlfriends, so because I'm like, and I actually, like, as a female, I get it. Like I can get where that would be weird, but at the same time, like some, like, actually the electric guitar player, I met his girlfriend and she's like the coolest. Like I was like, oh thank God, because I like want you to keep playing with me, because her boyfriend's incredible. He like shreds, and I'm like, he's like, so good, and I'm like, if I meet her and she hates me, he's not gonna play with me anymore. And it worked out. But yeah, it's such a weird dynamic of like, and I get it too. Like I get it as a female. And I mean, I even see, like, I don't know, the whole scene is bizarre, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, I've had it where I'm like, I've met somebody, like and I'm not even playing with them. It's like we have a gig and they play right after me or whatever. And I meet their girlfriend and I can tell they're like, don't talk to him. Like, you're not going to be his friend. And I'm like, okay. You just get that vibe. It's just bizarre. And then too, like for traveling, like guys can travel and feel a whole lot safer. I really don't like going to gigs by myself a lot of the times. So like I typically, like, I'm lucky that my mom loves to come to gigs with me and stuff, and my family likes to come, because a lot of times if there's not a sound system, I'm setting it by myself, I'm tearing down by myself. That takes a while. I'm carrying things to the car. It's night and there's weird people out there, and I don't like to put myself in like positions where I could not be safe. So it's like so many things that make it harder as a female. So, but it also makes me want to do it more. It's like, okay, it grows you or whatever, but sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I give up.
It's shit that you have to like have your resolve tested that often. Like, all the time, because obviously you want to be there, but to be in those situations, like I know, like if my fiance, like I don't want her like going to gigs on her, and I wouldn't want her to go through those things, but it's one of those things where if you are a musician, you have to do those things, but to feel that way and to not feel safe in that type of environment is fucking appalling. But it's tragic how like rife it is. Like this festival I was at on the weekend is a huge metal festival, and I went with my fiance and two of her girlfriends, so it was just me and three women, and I didn't like them going anywhere on their own because I know what men are like, and obviously I'm not being a fucking not all men or what. I'm not trying to be like that person, but it's, that there's a threat and there's a risk.
Yeah, especially when the alcohol is involved. Yeah. That's my thing. Like
at a bar or a club or something.
I play breweries, which like breweries, here are typically like pretty tame, but like when alcohol's involved, you just never know sometimes. I mean, I haven't had like a bunch of situations, but I also don't want to be in a situation and I'm alone in that in the one time, you know what I mean? So it's like I'd rather be safe than sorry. But yeah, it is like a thing. And if I have like a band with me, then I'm not worried about it. They can help me. They're not gonna whoever is going to be my band, my friends are going to like, not going to let anything happen to me. But if I'm by myself,
it's a different story.
Yeah. It's just weird. But yeah, it's also too, like for me, I think a lot of, at least most of the people my age in my area who music are men. And I like want to have music friends. And it has been more difficult to have like people I can talk to about it, because there's like, it's just, look, as I was saying, like some men just don't think that there's just a different thing. And I will say, like, I could be included. Like, men, they're gearheads. Female musicians are not so much. I don't care. I think it's hilarious. I love to listen to guys. I'm like, sure, whatever sounds cool. That's a cool pedal, man. Like, I don't know, but I can talk about anything else besides that. And now I do have quite a few guy friends and female musician friends, but like starting out, I felt like I was like, man, I would come have a beer with you guys and like chat about music. Like, I never get to talk to any, like I'm just here by myself, like nerding out in my own head about music. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's such a strange thing. I remember years ago, I read a book by there's a band called White Zombie from back in the 90s, and the bassist, it was Sean Yussel, this Gale bassist. And the book's called I'm With the Band, and it's basically just an account of what it's like to have to deal with those people on a regular basis, where, you know, she got told she was like a groupie when she was carrying a bass on, and you were like, do you even know how to play that? And then she'd literally be walking onto stages like people were trying to tell her what to not do and stuff. And it's to have that still be so pervasive in an industry and still have just those constant battles. I can imagine, like, it just must be exhausting as a woman in the industry and a woman in music to have to deal with those things all the time. On top of, you know, at this festival, I saw constant fucking creeps trying to get on with like my three friends, and it was like there was one guy and he came up to them and was like, can you take a picture of me? So they did, and then he stood there for 5 minutes and they didn't realize he kept on standing there, and I was just staring at him because I knew what the motherfucker was thinking. And they didn't realize that until I was talking to them like the next day. I was like, you do know that guy was like trying to like start something, because he stared at you for another 5 minutes afterwards, and he went, really? And I was just like, it's always just an environment of like, there's not necessarily always a threat, but there's always the potential of something.
Yeah.
And it's just got to be exhausting all the time.
Yeah. I think a couple weeks ago, I opened for, I don't know if you know who Lily Hyatt is. Yeah. She's really awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And she's so sweet. I was talking to her after the show and we were cracking up, because like, I honestly don't really get offended by it anymore. I just am like, it's frustrating at times. Like, I rarely think about it. It's like something like, as soon as I started, I saw how it is to be a female musician, and I'm like, it is what it is. But there are days where I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to like bash my head into the wall right now. Yeah. But after the show, I went up to her and she's like, yeah, this man just came up to buy some merch, and he was like, you know, I don't usually like female artists that much, but I really loved all the whole lineup. Y'all were great. And she was like, and I was just like, thanks. Do you realize what you're saying and who you're saying it to? Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah. But I thought that was funny, because I was like, people were like, they said that. And I'm like, oh, people say stupid stuff like that all the time where they think it's a compliment, but you're like,
yeah, you play great for a girl or some shit like that.
Yeah. And you're like, what? It's like, that was an amazing show, and I don't even like going to female artist concerts that much. And you're like, yeah. Well, at that point, it's like, why even add that at the end? Yeah. Even if you that, what was the point? Like, it doesn't change the fact that you liked the concert, right? You said you liked it. What are you it was just added for no reason. It's so bizarre. People are so weird sometimes.
Yeah, no,
But
it's just absolutely baffling. Like all the stories I hear of shit like this, it's just absolutely mind-boggling that it's still a thing, and it's still like when those type of backhanded compliments just drive me insane. So I can't even
yeah,
imagine to be on the receiving end of those. You must want to
yeah.
shoot someone every
I
now and
think
then.
it's funny. I think it's funny, but I think it's ridiculous, and it makes me mad. Like if it was said to somebody else, and like it made me mad it was said to her and not me, because I'm like, dude, you bought tickets to her show.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Like, why? Like, okay, like, did you go like thinking it was gonna be bad and you could make fun of her? Like, I don't understand what the point was to even say that.
Yeah.
Like, you paid for a female artist ticket. You obviously liked her music, but you don't typically like female. Like, what? It just makes no sense. I will say, and this is the one thing that I think the coolest thing, even though it sucks being a female musician a lot of days, is I know I can tell who the really good musician guys are better than the good musician guys can. Like there's easy ways for me to be like, oh, that's a great guy. And that like, cause one day I would love to have a band with me. And I mean, I would love to have some females in the band too, but there's probably going to be a guy in my band or whatever. Like I can pick who is a really good guy and who very easily, just because there's certain like little things that people would do where I'm like, and then later they'll do, and I'm like, yep, I knew it. And then other things where it's like, for me, one of the easiest way to like to tell if a guy musician is like a real, like just a good human being is if they get excited when there's like a female in the band, if they make a comment. Like all the nice guy musicians will be like, hey, did you see that? Like, to their buddies, to their guy friends, they'll be like, do you see that drummer? She was badass. I love a female drummer. Like, and this is coming from a male drummer saying that. And that's usually when you can tell. It's like, one, they know that there's people who, they know that it's harder already as a female drummer. And two, they're like, they think it's really cool. And three, they're like supportive of female artists. If they listen to female artists usually, or if they're like how they interact with females in general. Yeah. But I see it and I also experience it. So I can pick out good people in the industry, I think, a lot easier. Which I love, because then I end up being able to meet like some of my favorite people on the planet are people that I work with in the music industry, like the studio engineer who I work with, Doug Williams. It's like one of my favorite people ever. And I picked him based off of how comfortable I felt when I went and like toured his studio, just the way he interacted with me versus how I'd gone to some other studios where I felt like it wasn't that they were necessarily being rude, but it was sort of just, I didn't get like that organic sort of feel of like where he was like, what do you want to create? It wasn't necessarily talking about like how long it was going to take. It was like, well, he's like, send me a playlist of like all the songs you really like and like production wise and stuff like this. And it was like a very back and forth, and it was very level playing fields in terms of like, he knew I'd never recorded, but he didn't treat me like I was dumb, but he also was educational. Like he taught me things in a really cool way. And so I think I look at things a little bit differently. And and now he's one of my favorite people, and I picked him more because of that kind of stuff than anything else. And then, I mean, I also knew he did great work, but I think at the end of the day, like relationship with even like with a band, like if you have a good relationship with your band and they're solid, I don't think it matters. Like you could have the best band in the world, but if you don't like get along with them well, I think that's going to translate on stage and in a recording. So I do think it's helped me because I play with people that I genuinely really like, and I work with people that I genuinely like know are good people. So I'm not saying like men can't judge that, but I'm just saying like I get to like, I can tell the top of the top really easily in terms of like genuine good guys.
Yeah,
So
it's when someone makes you feel like heard and valued without
exactly.
without wanting anything for themselves. There's no ulterior motive, I think.
Yeah.
Because I know as a guy, I can spot a guy after something from far away because I was a fucking creepy teenager myself when I was younger. So I can see when people are being weird.
Yeah.
I can be like, I did that shit when I was 16. You're 30, pack it the fuck in.
Yeah, but you're also self-aware and you it's obviously you're a good guy, so you can probably be like, okay, this is the opposite of me, so you suck, you know. But some guys get dazzled, like especially if it's a really good, like I know some really good players who are like total douchebags, and I'm like, which ruins it all for me. I'm like, I could care less how good you play, dude. You suck. Like you suck. But yeah. And then and my thing too is like all these guys will be so nice to like, especially like if there's another guy who's very good but who is a nice guy, he's not going to see this other good guy in a negative light if he is only interacts with him and doesn't see him interact with other people, because this guy's going to be super nice to him, but he's not always going to be super nice to me or to people around me, so I get to see that. So it's a weird world we live in as musicians.
It's so tough to navigate, and it's again like it's been a really interesting conversation is because I've had quite a few women on the podcast, but to not really go into that because it's sometimes you don't want to be like sexism is in the industry, explain, because it's once you start pulling that thread. But this is a really interesting conversation because it is one of those things that's always there, and it's something that you do need to highlight, you do need to address, because it is, like you said, when, that good person is in the room with that person and they don't see it at that level, they need to be aware of how they do conduct themselves with other people. Because if you want this to be an inclusive genre, you want this to be an inclusive thing, you need to know if people aren't feeling safe or aren't feeling valued or heard. Yeah.
And to like pay attention, I think too, like a lot of people, like a lot of really awesome people that I work with pay attention to how other people, like how they're treating me, and so they'll like pay attention to that. And I think people need to be more aware of that, because the good guys out there might not always be aware of things or paying attention, but there's some really good guys who I know if they saw it and were aware of it, they would be the ones to maybe help these morons be like, do you realize how rude you're being? Or do you realize you're looking at something like this and it's shouldn't be like that or whatever? Because I definitely think there, in terms of music, there's definitely a sort of bro mentality. Because for me, I talk about this to my mom all the time. I'm like, especially like there is a huge number of male musicians, and I was like, there's very few male musicians who I'm like acquainted with who would go see a show of mine, but I see them go support all of their buddies constantly, because it's like, what's up? Like, they're not gonna go. Like, I know that. I learned that really fast. Like, there's a lot of people that, and I mean, a lot of them are gigging too, but I know like they go when they're free and they go see their buddy. If I'm playing, they're gonna go see their bro buddy, not their Casey buddy. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you do have to, it's nice to make a conscious effort of that. Sometimes like it means a lot to like us as female artists to like have support from like male artists in that way too. Because I think sometimes it's easy to feel like you're overlooked, even if you're not, but it's like showing up to somebody's show is like means a lot. And I think that's always been like a one of the main things I've seen in the scene for me anyway. It's like other musicians, like they'll go see their bros all the time. Have they ever gone to see me? Not really. And that kind of sucks. And I'm like, I don't know why that is. Cause like unless you're lying to me and you're telling me you like my music and you don't mean it, which also that's a problem. Just don't even reach out and tell me you like my music. Don't share my stuff if you don't like it. Genuinely. But it's just weird. It's very weird. But it is definitely, and two, I think for me anyway, it is like, I love trying to find new female musicians for me, because for a while too, I think the other reason I didn't look into music and the way that I'm doing it now is because I didn't see that many females with guitars who were actually like playing. I remember in high school, when I really started getting into Brandy Carlisle, I think it was when she was touring with Firewatcher's Daughter, that album. And she was coming to my area. And so I bought tickets to see her. And I don't know if you've ever seen her in concert, but she's like one of the best performers to this day. I've seen a lot of people, hands down, probably number one best performer I've ever seen. She like runs up and down the stage. She shreds. Her voice is like, the energy that she brings, I've never seen anything like it. And I just remember being like, a girl can do that. Oh my, like, not that I didn't think, but like, it was just like my first like of seeing it like that. And like, I was like up front and I'm like seeing her and I'm like, this is, I was like freaking out. I like had never seen anything like that. And that's when I was like, yeah, I can do this. I want to do this. If I can do that, then I want to do that. That's so cool. But
then a lot of guys will watch that and not realize that, you know, they're also doing it in like heels and shit as well. Because I know I'm a huge Hailstorm fan, and Lizzie Hale's obviously the singer of that, and she wears like heels that are taller than like Paul Stanley's, and she's balancing on one leg and she's running around and stuff. And it's like, not only is she shredding on a guitar,
girls are
heart out, she's doing it in like 10-inch heels, which no guy could do without snapping his ankle.
Girls are tougher than people give us credit for. Especially I was like complaining so much at the festival because I was like wearing a dress and I was like it is so annoying that you guys are just wearing pants and you can just bend down normally and not worry about like flashing anyone. And they were just cracking up at me because I was like, sorry guys, give me like 5 minutes while I bend down in these like heels and then get in. Because like, I mean, technically I don't have to dress that way, but I am one of the people that like, if I feel like I look good, I play better. And I also like, it makes me feel like a rock star. So I'm going to do all the annoying extra stuff that they don't have to do. Like I'm going to put on makeup. I'm going to do my hair. They can just like roll out of bed, honestly, they can put on a t-shirt. If you put a cool hat on, you look like you tried really hard as a dude if you put on a cool hat.
Yeah.
Even I'm like, wow. Oh wait, he's literally just wearing a cool hat. But I'll be like, wow, dude, you look really cool. What did you do? Oh, hat. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But even then, I know if there's a picture of me in a hat, it's because I haven't washed my hair and I couldn't be arsed washing my hair. And that's like,
I can't wear hats. They make my head sweat so much. Then I'm like, well, then I'm stuck in it the rest of the day, especially at a festival. Cause I'm like, I don't want to look like somebody goes, oh, I saw your set and I look like disgusting. So I'm like, no, I'm not. And also I feel like I move my head too much. And then I feel like the hat's going to fall off. It's too much thought that I have to put in, even though my mom loves when I wear hats and she's like, why don't you wear that hat? It looks so cool. And I'm like, because I do care what I look like to a degree, but not that much. That's too annoying. I just cannot. But it does look, they do look really cool on stage. That's just where I draw the line. I'll wear heels. I won't wear a hat. I'm done. I draw the line.
Yeah. Well,
unless it's some special hat that has like an ice pack in it.
Oh yeah, that would be a really nice one. Just like, and it's got like, but I think that's kind of maybe getting to one of those like builder hats with the like straws and stuff on it. It's like where the like, functionality and
there has to be a way. There has to be a way to like make a hat really cold. Trademarking that right now. If anybody hears this, I will sue you. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time and I don't want to keep you too long. And this has been an amazing chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been super fun.
Yeah. But have you got any plans to come over to the UK at any point?
I would love to come to the UK. Actually, I know the band that has been playing with me are probably coming there. They have been there. So you should definitely look up Jive Mother Mary. Awesome. They're great human beings and badass musicians. Yeah, I would love to come out to the UK. And I hear apparently, I don't know, but everybody says the UK really loves Americana country artists.
Yeah, they really love Americana and country artists. It's harder because obviously with road country and stuff, we're trying to build a scene here of UK artists.
Yeah.
And it might be the same thing as, where like they just give a shit more if you traveled. So it's
yeah. I didn't mean American. I meant Americana, but I guess American does.
Yeah. But with Americana artists, it seems that it holds more weight if they are actually American or they are, necessarily like European coming over to Britain. Because I know.
Hey, y'all have Yola.
Yeah, true.
And Yola is.
But she's done really well in the States, and it wasn't until she did well in the States that people in the UK started to give a shit.
Exactly. And Brandy Carlisle is the one who like really has helped her a bunch too. I freaking love Yola. I was supposed to see her in like May when COVID, not this May, but last May when COVID was crazy, and I was so bummed that got canceled. But she's insane. I love her.
Yeah. But I know for a fact, like if you came to the UK, everyone would like absolutely like show up, and they just.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Apparently, Jive Mother Mary has done like a European tour, and they said just the reception there is like so nice. And they said it's like a different, even the bar scenes are different. Like people like actually really come to hear like if they're coming to hear the music, they want to hear the music, and they're like not getting necessarily trashed all the time, or they're like, they were like, it's different. It's so nice. The different. He was like the manners. I think he's like, can't remember what he said. He said something about, he said like, as soon as they finished, everybody just left. He's like, usually people stay and get like hammered, but they were like, all these people were just here for the music and they left. He's like, that would never happen here. Everybody would just get like hammered and then leave at like forever. But they were like, yeah, everybody's like, well, the show's over. And like, we really just came to drink some, but like we came to see you guys. And they were like, wow. Like people here like at a brewery, like they'll come to see the band, but there's also, I don't know, that's just not necessarily the mindset all the time. I'm not bashing Americans, but yeah.
And do you have any tour dates planned for the US to like travel around?
I'm hoping to, I'm currently talking to some people about getting out to Tennessee. I think I'm playing in Nashville, but it's sort of for Americana Fest, or it is for Americana Fest, but it's not like because of COVID, they're doing more of like a live stream thing. So I think that's the 24th, but other than that, I mean, I have a bunch of dates around North Carolina, but I'm hoping to get out of North Carolina in the next couple of months. But that's the other thing. Ironically, right when COVID hit was when I was like, yeah, I need to like start getting out farther. And where I felt like I was able to. And then COVID hit, and then like I literally could not. But yeah, I would love to get out farther. There's a lot of places that like I've had people like want me to come out to Colorado. I'd love to go. I would love to play anywhere, really.
Yeah.
As long as I get to play, I'm happy. Yeah. And honestly, if it's out of North Carolina, I'm pumped. Not that I don't like North Carolina, but that's pretty much the only places I played are in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So to meet new people and reach different people, that's exciting to me.
And there you have it, folks. That's episode 38 of Into the Van, Into the Bag. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this, please go leave a review wherever you are listening. That really helps things. And keep on supporting the music you love. Keep supporting the things that you love. I'll be back with a brand new episode in 2 weeks. In the meantime, go listen to Rogue Radio. Go listen to The Next Life. And keep on supporting live music. Go to shows if you can, if you feel safe, if it's safe to do so. I've got a lot of tour dates. Go to mike333west.com/shows. You can find them all there. And I'll see you on the road, my friends. Stay safe. Peace.